Hello and welcome. I'm Siddharth Zarabi, and with me today, the chairman of the Life Insurance Corporation of India, Mr. M.R. Kumar, the largest company in India and which is now headed for what we are calling the Great Indian IPO. Mr. Kumar, welcome and thank you very much for your time with us today. This is going to be India's largest public issue by far, and what we are also reading, the largest IPO ever by an insurance company globally. So it's something that's going to be huge and historic, and that's why I want to begin by asking you to tell our viewers and our audience, where does this entire process stand as of today?
Thank you, Siddharth. Coming to your question, I think after the announcement by FM regarding IPO of LIC, a lot of work has happened. It all started with appointment of Ernst & Young as our implementation advisor for calculation and processing of embedded value, and the reporting actuary Milliman, who will actually report on the values. So this is a huge job for any insurance company. That too for LIC, it is a really huge one. It takes a lot of time to get that value, but I think in the last 1 year we've done a lot of work. We've covered a lot of ground, and maybe in a month or so we should be able to get through that EV calculation. Besides that, Deepam, which is actually doing the whole process for LIC, has brought in the book running lead managers who have started their work on advising us. We have a legal counsel in place, and the work of writing of the draft red herring prospectus has already started internally. At LIC, we have a set up an IPO cell, project management unit, headed by a senior executive director. A lot of people, almost 80 to 100 people within the corporation, are working on supporting the whole process. And I think going forward, we will have a lot of work still left. But then I'm confident that we should be able to get things done the way we want it to be done.
What is the timeline likely at this stage for this issue to conclude? I believe the internal target really is within this fiscal. Is that what you yourself anticipate?
That's true. You said it right. We are planning to bring out the IPO, the listing rather, by the end of the fiscal. And we are working towards that.
I want you to now tell our audience about how large LIC is. And the reason I'm asking you this question is, it's not just a balance sheet size which is pegged at $511 billion. It's not the number of policy holders. By far, once this whole process is over, India will wake up to the fact that LIC is the largest Indian company. Demystify for our audience, how large is LIC?
All right. Let me start with the strength that we have on employees. We are probably one of the largest PSUs in terms of size of employees, 1 lakh plus employees. We also have the largest number of agents in the, probably globally, I do not know. We have 13.5 lakh agents. And you can imagine that when LIC started off in 1956, at the time of nationalization, there were hardly a few thousand agents with us. So we have grown in leaps and bounds over time. And we are very strong agency channel. And because people in India and Indians particularly and globally also, people still have the comfort of buying insurance, talking to somebody, eyeball to eyeball, and trying to understand the nuances of life insurance before they actually buy the product. So that has really worked for us, and we are that way large. I don't have to tell you about our assets under management. That is very, very humongous. And the kind of work we do on a daily basis, whether it is equity markets, whether it is selling insurance, is equally big. So therefore, I think that is what I would like to tell you.
Over almost 2 decades plus of private insurance companies operating in India, and yet you command maybe 3/4 of the market share for the insurance product space in this country.
Yes, that's right. I think I owe it to the LICians, our employees and our agents who have made it happen for us. And I think globally, we must be the only PSU life insurance company which has held on to so much of market share after, as you said, 2 decades of opening up the market.
In terms of valuation, what is the internal number that the company is working with?
We don't have any number. I wish I could tell you.
180 to 200 billion dollars is one number.
Right. I know people are coming up with a lot of numbers. As I told you, the embedded value is still under process. Only once we know the embedded value, and valuation is ultimately a multiple of that. And that will be decided again, not by us, it will be decided by the markets. So really can't tell you more about that.
There's a lot of anticipation for this issue, not just because of the fact that the company is very large or the fact that we have an IPO boom underway. It also sort of represents the coming of age of the process in which the Indian markets have matured. LIC, lends a very big shoulder to our markets. In terms of the size, Mr. Kumar, of the issue, are you in a position to give us a number of what the size of this issue is? There have been reports that it will be a multi-phase one, perhaps up to 20% will get offered over phases. What can you share with us?
Really can't share much because again, government is also waiting for the embedded value numbers to come out, and government will take a call on whether it is going to be 5, 10, 15 or 20.
Okay. What about the people who will participate? There are 2 points that I specifically want you to address. One, do employees get a fair chance? Does the public at large get a fair chance? I've been noticing comments on social media saying that anyone who applies for LIC should get a share in his demat account. The company and the government the corporation should make it sure that happens.
Siddharth, you know all about IPOs, and it's question of how much it gets subscribed, oversubscribed, and based on that, people will get allotment. Part one. Part two, employees, yes, they do stand a chance based on the regulations in force. SEBI allows employees to get a fair chance. Also, for the first time, possibly policyholders are also likely to get a share. It's been sort of amended in the Act. It's an enabling provision, but how it will really open up and go forward is something that we're working on. So it's quite possible that a share of this could be given to the policyholders as well. Again, it will depend on the multiple, it will depend on the subscription. It's not that every policyholder will get on allotment. Again, it will depend on many other factors.
By itself, whatever is ultimately decided in terms of the ratios and numbers, the fact that someone who holds a Jeevan Bima policy also gets to own, even if practically a part of LIC, will itself be quite a unique thing in the Indian
Very
context.
unique. It will be very unique.
How does today LIC compare with global players? If you can just give us some overview on that.
Globally, I think there was a report recently on brands, and I think we are in the top 3 in terms of brand valuation amongst in general. Plus, among insurance companies, I believe the only insurance companies which have the kind of size we have are based out of China. And other than that, I don't think there are any insurance companies globally that match the size and the operational strength of LIC.
I want to now turn to some other topics. The first topic which I want you to address is what changes for the corporation post-listing. Is it just 5-10%? Because that is not a huge stake. It will still remain in some ways a company that is owned via an act of parliament. I don't even know how I should describe the ownership of the company. Maybe you can throw some light. What will change for the company post-listing regardless of the size of the issue?
Post-listing, LIC will continue to be governed by the rules of the Government of India. Also, the regulator, IRDA. Plus, after listing, we will also have the SEBI, as part of the regulator. So, we will have to be in sync with not only the regulatory provisions on the IRDA, the insurance regulator, but also in sync with the SEBI regulations. So, that is a basic, a big change that will happen. We will be called upon to, give a lot of disclosures, which is quite obvious for any listed company. So the kind of disclosure that we'll have to give will be much, much more than we do as of now. And therefore, for all this to happen, we are working internally to create systems in place. Also get people to work on those systems. For example, since SEBI LODR regulations will be enforced, we will need a company secretary possibly to address those concerns of the regulator that will be there. So those are the things that are work in progress as of now.
So how would you respond to some of those people who are saying nothing will happen, it's just the government filling its deficit hole by selling equity in a crown jewel corporation, things will remain the same?
Let me put it differently.
Yeah.
Things have not been the same as far as LIC is concerned. It has always been different. Ever since the private sector opened up and insurance sector opened up, as I said so earlier also, that we have continued to have a market share. It's not just because we are a big PSU, it's because we adapted to the changes. We had a lot of technology put in place over the years. In fact, we were one of the first to adopt and adapt to technology very early on. And therefore, going forward, I don't see why we will not be as nimble or forward looking as anybody else in the market.
Post listing, will your existing rules with regard to the transfer of the surplus to shareholders and to policyholders, is there any possibility of that changing? Does the listing come in the way in any manner?
Listing doesn't come in the way, but as per the regulatory compliance that we have to do, we will probably have to change the surplus distribution over a period of time, and we are working on how it's to be done.
More in line with the 90-10?
Absolutely.
Okay. I want to also get you to respond to another point that has come up, and which is the fact that LIC is sometimes seen as the share subscriber of the last resort, especially for certain PSU situations. I don't want to use the word bailout, but that's been used. Will that change? Do you think that's a fair concern? Sometimes in the past, when your numbers and financials were not open to sort of technical and financial scrutiny, is that a fair assessment?
Not really. I've said this before as well, that we are looking at the basic strengths of the companies in which we invest, whether they are PSUs or not. And I've also been saying of late that PSU banks, for example, are doing extremely well. I mean, going forward, we are looking at a lot of valuation change happening in PSU banks as well. So there's nothing wrong in the investments that we make, because we do due diligence when we make all these investments. And we have never made any losses in any of these investments so far.
Okay. Let me now turn to one more issue which has been discussed in the recent past. This is the GST that is payable on insurance premiums. As one of the largest issuers, in fact, you insure most of India. What is your own view on it?
Personally, I believe that 18% is too high for life insurance. The reason I say that is insurance in India is still sold. It is not bought. It is not a luxury item. It is an absolute necessity for people to have insurance. And that's what we work for. I mean, every day we tell our agents and intermediaries, give insurance to people, please reduce the protection gap. Therefore, I think it would make sense if people are given some reduction in GST in terms of, in fact, the very old policies that we have, LIC continues to absorb the GST for the very old policies. But of late, then we have had to transfer that to the policyholders. But then, having said that, I would like to reiterate that yes, it's too high.
I personally believe it is unfair, and there should be no GST on me paying a premium to insure myself year on year. Maybe at the time of buying the policy, there can be one seen from a transactional point of view, but why my annual premium?
As I said, I agree.
You agree with that?
I agree. And in fact, it would rather possibly help us to sell more insurance.
Okay, and India does need more and more insurance, because the pandemic has, for example, taught a lot of people, and many people have suffered about the need for health insurance. I want you to reflect on the post-pandemic economy that we are currently in, from an insurance standpoint, from your deep connects with the rural hinterland. How has the economy changed, Mr. Kumar? Whatever thoughts that you may have to share with us on that.
Initially, when the pandemic happened, there was a lot of devastation. People have suffered. In fact, insurance industry also went through a lot of difficulties. Right up to Q2 of this year, I would say that the number of death claims reported were pretty high. We've been able to, LIC has settled most of the claims, but the increases in claims were far more than we thought as initially. But having said that, I think the economy is back on track now. Things are improving. We have put it behind us, and hopefully, third wave is not going to be there. It's not there. We've stopped talking about it. People have. But
Plus, we have had this good sort of success with vaccinations.
Very true, very true. But having said that, I think we continue to believe that we must be careful. We must be cautious, and people must have insurance. And people awareness for insurance climbed steeply during the pandemic, and people have understood that insurance is a basic financial product one must have before one thinks of equity, mutual fund, and things like that.
Mr. Kumar, I'm going to now come to some more concerns that I have been social media chatter, and I'm putting those questions to you from that point of view. One of the concerns, foreigners को LIC दे दिया जाएगा. This is a company that was bought together in some ways by clubbing a lot of private insurance companies many decades ago, and suddenly there will be foreigners. We will lose control. This is the first step towards ultimate privatization. This will take away cover which ordinary Indians enjoy. How would you respond to those concerns?
I don't think that there should be a concern at all, because every good company, once it reaches its level of potential, wants to get listed, because it's a question of participation, retail participation in the profits of the corporation. It is not selling, I would put it that way. And having said that, 51% will continue to be held by government come what may, is what the amendment has taken care of. So nobody can go beyond 49. So therefore, that comfort policyholders and customers will continue to have.
To my parents' generation, older people, and even young people who are not aware of financial matters, their concerns, because a lot of their savings are something that are intrinsically linked to LIC. What would you say to them about any residual concerns or just the fear of the unknown that they may have?
There is absolutely no fear, because there is no unknown.
Okay.
It is all known. I mean, many companies have got listed. They've done very well in the past. They will continue to do well. As you rightly said, there will be more oversight, regulatory oversight, which means we will be more cautious, more careful with the money that we hold in trust of the policyholders, and therefore they need not have any concern about it.
One more concern that had come up was, and this was in reference to Coal India, which at its time was one of the biggest listings ever, and the recent coal supply issues that we saw. So people are asking, what will change for the public at large with LIC's listing? Again, the same point, सरकार पैसा ले जा रही है, हमें क्या मिलेगा?
नहीं मिलेगा ना, because see, people who invest in the shares are going to get dividend. And let's not compare apple and oranges. Coal is coal. The insurance is insurance, right?
Okay. Since we are talking about comparisons, I also want you to reflect and comment to our audience on the coming of age of the financial sector. This generation, and we've now seen the current IPO that is underway, which is of one of India's largest fintech companies, Paytm, which is happening. Prior to that, we saw a food aggregator. And with LIC, would you agree with my view that it sort of represents the coming of age of financial corporation, really, an insurance corporation coming out with this great massive listing?
Yes, true, but no comparison with the Paytm or aggregators. We are totally different. But having said that, yes, people have been coming into the market. More youngsters are getting into the equity markets. People feel that there is a lot of potential in the markets. And I believe that the LIC's listing is not just a big IPO. You called it the Great Indian IPO. It's, I think, I believe that it will expand the capital markets itself, because as on date, there are 6 crore Indians with demat accounts. So out of a population of 130 crore, even if you take away 50%, there's a potential of 60-70 crore people having demat. We have hardly 10% of that now.
One more concern about the cost of insuring oneself. We have seen an increase in premiums across the board. I'm not saying this with reference to LIC, but over the last few years, we have seen even for general insurance, health insurance post-pandemic. 2 points to that question. One, any specific concerns to those doubters who may feel महंगी हो जाएगी policy? The other, your view on which way are insurance premiums headed, let's say, over the medium term, Mr. Kumar?
Medium term, I don't see insurance pricing going up substantially. It has gone up quite a bit because of the pandemic. Let's understand that when the pandemic of this kind happens, there is some pressure on claims, as I told you. But having said that, what we keep telling people that please take insurance at a younger age. The younger you are, the cheaper the premium is going to be. And if people at the age
Does
of
young mean the first month of employment? Is that what you are referring to, or just turning an adult, a parent gifting 18-year-old?
Parent could give, but someone who is earning for the first time, the first thing you should do is take insurance. At the age of 20, 24 is far more cheaper than taking it at 40. After you look at the pandemic and said, now I want insurance.
So sorry to interrupt you, but Mr. Kumar, a lot of young people are now investing in crypto, for example. I personally seen some data. It is anecdotal largely. And I was completely surprised by the fact that there are 25-year-olds who are choosing to directly invest in crypto without some of the safeguards that are normally associated with regular investing.
I would like to comment on that, because this is something that is still developing. It's emerging. And whether it will settle down as a kind of an investment opportunity forever, or is it a short-lived kind of a phenomenon, is something that we'll have to wait and see.
Hmm.
But insurance is required for everybody. And I believe once you are insured, you feel safe, you feel secure, and that really matters.
A lot of young colleagues sometimes come and ask even me the difference and what they should do vis-a-vis term insurance and a money back kind of a product. I know it may be a very small minor question for you, but still as the chairman of LIC, I want your comments.
Specifically, I mean, anybody for that matter should take term, because term is cheap and term covers your entire insurance need. Beyond that, if you're looking for a savings product, you can take a mutual fund. If you're looking for a savings product linked to the market, you can take a unit linked insurance plan, and you can enlarge on your portfolio as you go along. But start with the term.
Have you personally been surprised by the offtake in direct equity investing, the number of people who have opened Demat accounts? Why has this happened? Your thoughts on that?
People are seeing value in that. Maybe the return from equity market is attracting people.
Is it greed, sir?
It could be greed.
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody is careful and somebody is evaluating the companies, doing research and taking decisions based on that research that he does, I think it makes good sense. But if people are just running after the money, but then they must get insured first.
They must get insured first. That's a very good line. Your view on markets, current valuations, we all know the Sensex has come of age. In fact, it's now become a senior citizen. And the rest of these we've seen the kind of money that's been coming in, both domestic and institutional money. You are one of the largest players in the market. Where do you see the markets right now?
Markets are stable. They went down quite a bit during pandemic. They have, I think, regained that. But if you look at the last 5-year kind of a map, you will find that it has been growing steadily, except for the blip that you saw during the pandemic. So equity markets are here to stay. They will grow, but maybe they will not grow as steeply as they have done the last 6 months or so. It may taper off a little, but then there is definitely value going ahead.
Some concerns around the fact that with this rush of youngsters or first-time investors rushing in directly into equity, and that whenever a crash happens and markets are cyclical, that they will be left holding the can and get hurt.
I mean, it's for them to decide. What can I say? Because if that can happen, may not happen, I mean, it's something you have to take a call on.
Is it surprising to you what has happened?
I'm not surprised, because you see, the youngsters today are more adept at learning. Maybe we started investing equity maybe at the age of 40, our generation. Now they are investing at 25. And as you said, somebody at 20 is investing in cryptocurrency. So things are emerging, things are evolving, and things are changing.
Mr. Kumar, as we wind down this conversation, a couple of last points really, and one of them has to do with an attitude towards savings. The earlier whole concept of insurance, in fact, I'll be honest, the first insurance product that I purchased, which was incidentally a LIC policy, and I think the last premium I paid just this year itself, the whole idea was it's a savings product. We have moved over the last 2.5 decades from assured returns to market linked returns. For those who are watching you, what sort of scenario should they prepare for over the next 5 to 10 years when it comes to returns? I hear a lot of senior citizens saying that FD rates are not even giving us any protection against inflation. Your comment on that?
I would say this, that people have to first decide on what they want to do with their money. Now, if they want pure insurance, term insurance is the way to go. If they want a fixed return kind of a product from insurance, there are guaranteed products, which we call non-participating guaranteed editions. Of course, they are fixed benefits, but they can choose that. If they want to be a little risky along the way, they can take a unit-linked insurance plan, as I told you. So it will again depend on the risk perception that they have and the aversion or likeness to the risk that they would like to have. But a person in the early years should have term. Maybe he evolves out of that, tries to get into fixed term, fixed benefit, survival benefit kind of products, endowment products, money back products. Also, he would like to experiment with unit-linked.
Okay, Mr. Kumar, I know there's so much more to discuss, but we'll leave that for another opportunity when you firm up what we are calling the Great Indian IPO, and I look forward to a very successful listing for LIC of India, a company that represents India in many ways more than one. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
With that, it's a wrap on this conversation on the great Indian IPO. If you have, thank you very much for watching.